This evening, it's with great pleasure that I'm going to introduce Bill Borden to you. He's a graduate of Crespi, class of '69, and he's also the executive producer of many other things, but most recently and notably, High School Musical 1, 2, 3, and coming 4. So we're very happy to have Bill with us. Go and see him a little bit.
Thank you guys. This is actually a great honor for me to come back to Crespi High School after 40 years and to be honored like this. So I feel like I thought I'd be the oldest person in the room, but I'm not. Anyway, Mr. King's speech was so much better than the one I'm going to give. I have to praise it. Do you want to come and give again? I'm not going to be funny. So close. Okay. Well, I actually, after I left Crespi, I went to Cal State Northridge and then off to Italy to go to school for many years. And Italy, it was great. Well, I actually studied art restoration and worked in Florence at the University of Florence. But there I decided, I was just telling a story, I decided I wanted to be a filmmaker. Actually, in the yearbook it says I wanted to be a filmmaker. But I was sitting in a studio in Florence, Italy, painting, and I realized that the people around me were better than I was. And I thought, if I was Michelangelo, what I'd be doing? And I thought, I'm going to leave Italy and I'm going to go to Hollywood again and make movies. And that's what I did. And I got lucky. From the very beginning, one of the first movies, I teamed up with a director named Taylor Hackford, and we did Officer and a Gentleman, and then La Bamba and White Nights and a whole bunch of movies, and we got really lucky and we started our career. But I actually credit Crespi High School with at least high School Musical, because it's true. It's true. When I was a junior, we wanted to have a film society or something. But anyway, the only movie that we went and saw as our little group was Romeo and Juliet at the Royal Theater in Santa Monica. And it was Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet. It came out, I think it was 1968, 69. And it created an enormous influence on me. And I always said I wanted to make another Romeo and Juliet. And it took me 40 years, or something, 30-some years. And if you look at High School Musical 1, you could probably credit Zeffirelli with some of it. People say it was Grease, it wasn't. It was Zeffirelli for sure. And that was the start of it, of a movie that has now been seen by 500 million people, one movie, which is pretty amazing. But today I went back to my yearbook, and I was going to bring it, but I figured I'd lose it and drop it around. Is anyone here from my year? Is anyone here? There isn't even Father Albert. 69. I thought Father Albert was going to be around.
70, class of 70.
Class of 70?
69.
69. Anyway, I went back to the yearbook, which I was the editor, and I was curious. You know, I was like looking at some names and seeing if I saw anyone I recognized. But I opened the beginning of the book, and there was a photograph that I took that when you open the yearbook, there's a photograph, and it was taken right out here on the beach, like 300 yards from here. And underneath the photograph, in the beginning of the book, it says, "The resources of our knowledge are limited only by the boundaries of our imagination." I wrote that too. I don't know exactly what it means, but it was 1969. Which is significant in everything that I'm going to speak about tonight. Inside the next page of the book was written by our valedictorian, Steve White. Steve White, if any of you read fiction novels, he's been a very famous fiction writer. You can look him up. He's written 15 novels that are very good. But Steve wrote the following: "The birth of each new journey marks the end of a previous frontier. For the first time now, we walk alone, part of an alien generation on our own. Too much is ruled by our fears and our dreams. It is very important, however, that we remember, just because we are young and strive for what we feel is ideal, it doesn't mean we aren't right." it was, Steve went off, I think, did he go to Yale or Harvard? Where did he go?
He went to UC Irvine.
He went to UC Irvine. I thought he went to Yale. Anyway, he was our valedictorian. I thought he went someplace else. But he was always our intellectual. But what is great about this is it was 1969, and there was a lot going on that year. And there was a lot going on at Crespi those years, too. The great thing about those 4 years in Crespi, it was called a college preparatory. But the great thing was, and I wish Father Albert was here to talk about this, was that it didn't really prepare us for college. It really was about preparing us to be people. And it was really about preparing us to be kind of spiritual people and good high school students. And I find it really interesting that we ask our kids to be older than they should be. I have 3 boys. And I enjoy them being 14 years old and not wanting to be 21. And I enjoy them to act like 14-year-olds or 13-year-olds or 12 years old. And I thought that those 4 years in Crespi High School really allowed me to be a teenage boy and allowed the freedom to be a teenage boy and to demand when it was appropriate and to let us play when it was appropriate. But it allowed us to be in the moment. And the rest of my life, in my filmmaking life too, I found that important, is allow you to be in the moment. And Crespi did that for me. So that was really significant. I had the great privilege to be kind of influenced enough by some people who I'm going to mention, but I spent years kind of studying religions. I found it very interesting, studying Buddhism and Hinduism and Catholicism, and I always found that interesting. And I think that probably Father Albert, who I wish was here tonight, who was the principal back then, had a great deal to do with that. And I want to thank him. And I have many times. We have lunch together, still to this, we get together every once in a while. He's at Loyola now. I wanted to thank him because he was an amazing, calmful leader. He was a great guy. He was really great. Also, John Carter. Is John Carter still around?
Father Gus is here somewhere.
Father Gus?
So John's still around.
Is John still around? Anyway, Coach Carter, as we called him, was a significant person in my life. I thought he was one of the most insightful teachers that I ever had. And one of the memorable moments I had was probably in 1968. You have to remember, we're in the middle of the Vietnam War. He told us one day, don't worry about Vietnam. He goes, the thing you got to worry about is fighting in the sand. It was really interesting. He said, it's the Mideast, it's not Vietnam that's going to be important in your lives.